Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. While the world is watching Canadian truckers protest in Ottawa to end all COVID restrictions, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is nowhere to be found. Will the truckers' demands be heeded? The Freedom Convoy 2022 is also inspiring other countries to take action. Even President Trump voiced his support for the Canadian truckers. An Irishman who was held captive by the CCP for 3 years is finally released. Okay, let's get into it. The 2022 Freedom Convoy arrived at Parliament Hill in Ottawa on Saturday, January 29th. As the massive convoy passed through different cities, they were greeted with large crowds cheering and holding Canadian flags and signs. Temperatures in Ottawa were minus 20 degrees Celsius or minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit. People from across the country braved the cold and gathered on Parliament Hill to support the truckers' demands to repeal the vaccine mandate and other COVID restrictions. The convoy's Instagram account stressed that its mission is to end all COVID-related mandates. Freedom Convoy 2022 is not anti-vaccination, as many of the truckers themselves have been vaccinated. The message reads, "We simply believe that every Canadian should be free to choose and face no discrimination or restrictions on their freedom due to their choice." Police were concerned about the potential for violence, but the entire weekend was very peaceful, or more like a festival. There was a lot of noise, people cheering, and the sound of car horns and music. Trucks circled the parade, and to no surprise, signs and placards against Trudeau were everywhere. Dr. Brianne Dawson, a veterinarian from Collingwood, Ontario, immigrated to Canada from the United Kingdom 12 years ago. She told reporters that her father died before Christmas, but because of Canada's federal air travel mandate, she and her family could not return to England for the funeral. They were stuck in Canada. Dawson's husband runs a catering company that employs 20 people. His business was also affected. He said, "It doesn't seem scientific to claim that there is serious transmission in restaurants, especially when you can take off your mask when you sit down to eat, but you have to put it back on when you stand. It is ridiculous." In recent weeks, Quebec has become one of the most restrictive regions in North America. Many have traveled from Quebec to Ottawa to make their voices heard. Marine biologist and teacher Sasha Beam from Montreal said that the mandatory vaccinations have caused people to lose interpersonal relationships. What is happening lacks logic. The protest is not about COVID, it's about segregation and discrimination, and Beam wants the government to end the lopsided propaganda. It is a personal choice whether to get vaccinated or not. The current vaccine policy gives you no choice, and if you don't get the vaccine, you'll be discriminated against. She explained that people can die from COVID, but death comes in many shapes and forms. Life goes on, and we have to learn to live with it. There is not only one way to fix this, not only the vaccine, but many other methods and treatments. But it is not right that many topics cannot be discussed now. Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, the PPC, joined the protests on Parliament Hill to show his support for the protesters. PPC candidate Matthew St. Jean also attended the rally. Some protesters said they would not leave until public health restrictions are lifted or Trudeau resigns. But others are not optimistic about the effects of the protests, believing the government will not compromise. 2 days before the truckers arrived in Ottawa, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted on Thursday, January 27th, that he will be isolating for 5 days due to exposure to COVID-19. He tweeted, "I learned that I have been exposed to COVID-19. My rapid test result was negative. I am following Ottawa health rules and isolating for 5 days. I feel fine and will be working from home." That means he won't be meeting with protesters. Actually, because Trudeau is fully vaccinated, according to Ottawa health rules, a fully vaccinated person who tested negative does not need to self-isolate. Trudeau obviously didn't offer a plausible excuse. Today, Trudeau updated his Twitter saying that he has tested positive for COVID-19 and will continue to work remotely this week. Tristan Hopper from the National Post wrote an article titled, what the truckers want and why Ottawa can't give it to them. The article describes the essence of the protest as ending the government's control over the people. Ontario Convoy organizer Jason LaFace told CTV that this is no longer about the mandate anymore. Rather, it is about our rights and how the government's been manipulating the population and oppressing us all the time. So, considering these demands would be political suicide for many people in Ottawa. Hopper also pointed out that Canadians themselves did not oppose pandemic restriction policies when they had the opportunity to choose. The article reads, "The Canadian public's overall acceptance with COVID strictures was also reflected in the results of the most recent federal election. In September, voters had the option of parties with platforms similar to the demands made by the Freedom Convoy 2022. The People's Party of Canada, most notably, promised an immediate end to federal vaccine mandates. However, the party scored just 4.94% of the popular vote. It seems that it is the long-standing cooperation of the Canadian people that has fueled the government's dictatorship. But the good news is that the people are waking up, and not all politicians turn a deaf ear to the people. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, on the other hand, openly echoed the truckers' requests. He said that the government's vaccine rule doesn't make sense and he will end it in the not-too-distant future in his province. His statement reads, "I want to be clear on how I feel about vaccines. I'm fully vaccinated with my booster shot. This did not prevent me from recently contracting COVID-19, but I believe it did keep me from becoming sick." So he concluded that the unvaccinated are not more dangerous than the vaccinated. Because vaccination is not reducing transmission, the current federal border policy for truckers makes no sense. An unvaccinated trucker does not pose any greater risk of transmission than a vaccinated trucker. The Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, also voiced support for the truckers. He promised to bring the vaccine mandate issue and discuss it with his American counterparts at the National Governors Association meeting in Washington, D.C. At a Saturday, January 29th rally in Conroe, Texas, President Trump praised the Canadian truckers. He said that they were bravely defending freedom.
That's true. The Canadian truckers, you've been reading about it, who are resisting bravely these lawless mandates, are doing more to defend American freedom than our own leaders by far. And we want those great Canadian truckers to know that we are with them all the way. They are. They've really shown something.
Elon Musk, the world's richest man and CEO of Tesla, tweeted his support for Canadian truckers to his 71.8 million followers. Musk tweeted under a drone video of the convoy in Ottawa, it would appear that the so-called fringe minority is actually the government. I want to take a moment to thank you all for your support of Front Page. Every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. We've heard that many of our viewers don't get notifications for our videos anymore, so please follow us on Telegram, Gab, Parler, and Getter for the latest updates. Okay, let's get back into it. Encouraged by the Canadian protest action, U.S. truckers are also preparing for their next move. They have been joining the record-breaking Canadian convoy to protest against vaccine mandates and government overreach. Brian Von D, the administrator at Convoy to DC 2022, announced that America is next. They will ride from California to Washington.
Everybody's been wondering what's going on, Convoy to DC. In America. Yes, it's going to happen right after Canada gets done with theirs. The dates will be posted at a later time along with the website, and all the information and all the routes will be placed in there. It will start out from California and head to DC.
He also mentioned Canadians will come to help. It is a joining of forces.
All the admins and mods on the other groups in Canada will also be over here helping with ours in the United States.
American truckers will stay in DC until the government grants their request, just as Canadian truckers are doing now.
Done with the mandates. We're done with the government telling us what to do. We will continue and we will follow, just like the rest of the world, on these trucker protests. and they will be 100% legal. They will abide by the law. If the drivers don't abide by the terms and agreements that we put in place, they will be kicked out of the convoy. But so far, Canada, everybody has absolutely been amazing. Not one person has been kicked out of the convoy. It's just been a unity that I've never seen before, not anywhere in North.
He also mentioned that they are protesting for all people, no matter what people's political choice. The government's overreach is done. An Irish businessman was stuck in Shanghai for nearly 3 years without any legal charges. After intense negotiations between the Irish government and the Chinese Communist authorities over the past few months, he was finally allowed to return to Ireland on Saturday, January 29th. Richard O'Halloran is the director of China International Aviation Leasing Services Limited. His employer, Min Jai-dong, was under investigation for defrauding investors, and O'Halloran got caught in the web. Before O'Halloran joined the company, Min had organized crowdfunding projects to purchase an Airbus aircraft. Then Min got into conflicts with the CCP. In February 2019, O'Halloran went to Shanghai to meet with investors. Later, he was detained at passport control when he tried to leave. The police told him his passport had an exit ban on it. This means that when he entered the country, the CCP had already planned to keep him from going home. Sky News reported on January 29th that O'Halloran was never charged with a crime or accused of any wrongdoing as he sat in Shanghai. He was subjected to numerous court hearings and police interviews. The Shanghai government demanded that his company pay a fine of $36 million or transfer the ownership of the airliner in order for him to leave the country. The Independent described the CCP as extorting a corporate ransom. Ireland's legal advisors have argued that such demands by the CCP are unjustified. In February 2020, the Irish government stepped in, attempting to get him back, but they failed. O'Halloran's wife, Tara, was warned in July of 2020 not to travel to China to visit O'Halloran for fear that she would also be detained by the Chinese Communist Party. At the peak of COVID in 2020, O'Halloran suffered several cardiac arrests and was hospitalized. Tara asked Irish Foreign Minister Simon Coveney for help. The President of Ireland, Michael Higgins, wrote to Xi Jinping specifically on the matter on December 23rd of 2020 and received a reply a month later. Xi said he hoped that the case would be properly resolved soon, but the situation did not change. I wonder if Xi is incapable of controlling what low-level officials do. O'Halloran finally reached an agreement with the CCP on Friday, January 28th, promising to hand over all proceeds from the aircraft to the CCP, and he was finally able to go home. Barry Andrews, a member of the European Parliament for Dublin, has been campaigning to free O'Halloran. He stated that for the past 3 years, O'Halloran's 4 children have lived a life without their dad. And his mother, who was in her 80s, did not know if she would ever see her son again. So his return is a relief for everyone. But Andrews urged the Irish government to reconsider its relationship with the CCP. Over the weekend, we published a new video on our membership site. I want to show you the trailer. Tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue. The United States and European allies have pledged to impose economic and political sanctions on Russia if it invades Ukraine militarily, but at the same time they're also concerned that any such sanctions could provoke retaliatory action from Russia. Why does it seem that no one can tame Vladimir Putin? What does he have up his sleeve? Putin's arrogance with Ukraine is fueled by a number of external factors. The United States' wariness of using troops abroad, Germany's energy dependence on Russia, and the CCP's reliance on Russia for international support. So what should the U.S. do? We'll explore this topic in depth on our membership site. Please join us at frontpageshow.com. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.